Ethan Voss stepped off the shuttle and onto the surface of Zythera Prime, his boots crunching softly on the crystalline ground. The air was thin but breathable, tinged with a faint shimmer that made the sunlight dance in a way he had never seen on Earth. Around him, the city rose like something from a dream towers of translucent crystal stretching hundreds of meters into the sky, connected by bridges that floated without support. Glimmering in the strange, lilac-hued sunlight, hovering vehicles zipped past, leaving trails of light, and the chatter of alien voices buzzed around him in a melody of strange tones and clicks. It was his first time on an alien world. He had expected awe, yes, but the reality was beyond anything he had imagined. Even though he had studied Zytheran history and culture for years, no book could prepare him for the beauty and complexity of this place. Humanity had always been cautious, slow to reach out beyond the solar system. But now he was here, part of a small delegation tasked with establishing formal relations with the Zytheran government. Ethan adjusted the strap of his pack and scanned the plaza. Zytherans moved gracefully, their forms lithe and elegant, with skin that shimmered faintly like moonlight on water. Some were taller than him by a head or more, others smaller. Yet all carried an air of refinement that was unmistakable. Humans had long been considered fragile and primitive in the eyes of most interstellar civilizations, and Ethan wondered what the Zytherans would think of him. "Stay close," his guide whispered in a clipped voice, a mix of caution and respect. The guide was a Zytheran named Rilka, assigned to show them around. Her eyes were wide and curious, and every so often she glanced at him, as if measuring his worth. Ethan followed her through the maze of streets, past floating gardens where plants glowed softly with their own light, and fountains that seemed to pour water upward into the sky. He tried to absorb every detail, knowing that this was the kind of moment that would be remembered for the rest of his life. But even as he marveled, he sensed something strange. From the corner of his vision, he saw a figure watching him. She stood on a raised platform, her posture perfect, hands clasped in front of her. Her hair was dark, long, and luminous, and her eyes large, almond-shaped, and shimmering like polished sapphire seemed to look right through him. Ethan froze for a moment. There was something familiar about the way she observed him, something that made the hairs on his arms rise. But before he could think more about it, the crowd swallowed her silhouette, and she vanished from view. "Do you see her?" he asked Rilka quietly. She shook her head. "No." "Who?" "Never mind," he muttered, shaking off the feeling. Perhaps it was just his imagination. He had been traveling alone for months before joining this mission, and the isolation had left him jumpy. Still, he couldn't entirely dismiss it, a sense of recognition that seemed impossible. Their path led them toward the palace, a structure even more magnificent than the city around it. The walls were not solid, but a lattice of crystal, woven together in patterns that shifted gently, reflecting the colors of the sky. The gates opened automatically as they approached, and Ethan felt a thrill of awe and apprehension. Inside, courtyards stretched endlessly, filled with alien flora that emitted soft light and strange, musical hums. Hovering platforms carried servants and officials effortlessly, moving in a silent choreography that made the palace feel alive. "This way," Rilka said, her voice low. They entered a hall with ceilings so high they seemed to disappear, adorned with glowing murals that depicted Zytheran history. Great voyages among the stars, battles won with clever strategy rather than brute force, and scenes of harmony with countless species across the galaxy. Ethan marveled at the detail. The artwork wasn't static. It shifted subtly, as if alive, telling stories in motion. As they walked, Ethan noticed that the hall was unusually quiet. He expected some form of greeting ceremony to begin immediately, but the attendants seemed to move with deliberate restraint. Then, he saw her again, Princess Liara. She emerged from a side corridor, moving with a grace that made even the most careful observer notice. The guards bowed instinctively, and everyone in the hall seemed to hold their breath. She was more beautiful than he could have imagined, not just in appearance, but in presence. There was a light about her, an aura of command and intelligence, that made Ethan feel both small and significant at once. Liara's gaze landed on him, and this time it lingered. Ethan felt a strange warmth along his forearm, almost as if the air itself had charged around him. He glanced down and caught a glimpse of his tattoo, a design he had barely noticed on himself until recently. It was a spiral of interlocking lines and shapes, etched when he was a teenager in a small Earth colony. Something he had always thought of as decorative. Now, in her eyes, it seemed important. Liara's breath caught audibly, a soft sound that startled Ethan. Her lips parted slightly, and she whispered, almost to herself, "So, that's you, human." The words were soft, yet they echoed through the hall like a bell. Ethan froze, unsure whether he had heard correctly. Rilke, noticing the reaction, tensed. "Princess," she began. Liara raised a hand, and the warning was silent but powerful. She took a step closer, her eyes fixed on Ethan's tattoo. "It's the mark," she said, her voice trembling in a way that no one present had ever heard from royalty before. Ethan's mind raced. "Mark? What mark?" "The symbol," Liara said, her gaze unwavering. "It is the sign of the one from the prophecy, from centuries ago." The hall grew still. The attendants and guards watched silently, uncertain. Ethan felt a mix of fear and excitement swirl in his chest. He had read about Scytheran prophecies, vague stories of a human who would one day come to their world to unite them with Earth. But he had always dismissed them as legend. Now, standing before this alien princess, the stories felt impossibly real. Rilke stepped closer to Ethan, her voice almost a whisper. "Do you understand what this means?" "Rilke, I don't know," Ethan admitted. His eyes met Liara's. There was no doubt in her expression, only certainty mixed with awe. "Why me?" Liara shook her head slightly, as if trying to comprehend it herself. "You carry the mark. That is enough. Everything else will reveal itself in time." Ethan felt a sudden weight settle on his shoulders. He was here as a representative of humanity. But this was something far beyond diplomacy. He had been chosen by fate, by some invisible thread of destiny, and he did not yet understand the consequences. Liara studied him for a long moment before gesturing toward a balcony that overlooked the city. "Come. I want to show you something." Curious and nervous, Ethan followed. As they stepped onto the balcony, the view took his breath away. The city stretched endlessly, towers glittering like jewels, platforms floating silently in the air, gardens glowing with bioluminescent colors that shifted with the light. Beyond the city, mountains rose like crystalline waves, and in the distance, he could see the shimmer of Scythera's oceans, reflecting the twin suns. "This is my world," Liara said softly, "and soon, you will have a part in it." Ethan swallowed. He had traveled across stars to reach Scythera Prime, seeking understanding and friendship. He had never expected that he would be standing here, marked by a symbol he barely understood, facing a prophecy that spanned centuries. The wind lifted his hair, and the suns dipped slightly toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the crystalline spires. He felt a strange energy in the air, one that hummed faintly, almost like it was alive. It was as if the world itself recognized him. Liara turned to him, her expression softening. "I will explain everything soon," she promised. "But for now, know this. You are not just a visitor. You are something more. Something the Scytherans have awaited for generations." Ethan looked down at his tattoo again, tracing the lines with his eyes. He had always thought it was just a simple design, a curiosity from childhood. Now, under the gaze of the Scytheran princess, it felt alive, as if it pulsed with meaning. I don't know if I'm ready for this," he admitted, his voice small. Liara smiled, faintly, but there was no doubt in her eyes. "None of us are ever ready for what fate chooses. But you will rise to it. I can see it already." As the twin suns set, bathing the city in shades of purple and gold, Ethan felt the enormity of his journey press upon him. He had arrived as a human diplomat, curious and cautious. But now, he was the focus of a prophecy older than his species' journey to the stars. And somewhere deep inside, he knew that life on Earth and the future of humanity among the stars would never be the same again. The morning sun rose slowly over Sci-Fi Prime, painting the crystalline towers in hues of pink and gold. Ethan Voss awoke in the guest quarters of the royal palace, still trying to process the events of the previous evening. The encounter with Princess Liara had left him both excited and uneasy. Her words, whispered in awe, kept echoing in his mind. "So, that's you, human." He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his tattoo. The symbol seemed ordinary, etched in simple black ink. Yet now, it carried a weight he could not explain. He had grown up thinking it was just a decorative design, a memento from childhood. But on Scythera, it was more than decoration, it was a mark of prophecy. A soft knock at the door drew his attention. "Enter," he said, trying to steady his voice. Rilka stepped in, her expression a mix of caution and respect. "Good morning, Ethan. The princess will see you soon," she said. Her eyes lingered on his tattoo for a moment before she looked away, careful not to draw attention. Ethan nodded, swallowing hard. He felt a mix of curiosity and nervousness. He had come to Scythera as a diplomat, trained for negotiations and cultural exchange. But the last 24 hours had thrust him into something far beyond protocol. Rilka gestured for him to follow, and they walked through the palace corridors. Each step echoed softly against the crystal floors, and the walls glimmered with embedded light, displaying subtle patterns that shifted as they passed. It was as if the palace itself was alive, observing them. Finally, they arrived at a grand chamber at the center of the palace. The room was circular, with a domed ceiling that reflected the colors of the sky outside. In the center stood Princess Liara, her posture regal, yet there was an unusual softness in her expression. "Good morning, Ethan," she said, her voice calm, but filled with something he could not name. "Thank you for joining me." Ethan bowed slightly, a gesture he had learned from Rilka. "Good morning, Princess Liara. I am honored." Liara gestured for him to stand. "There is no need for formalities here. Today, I want to speak freely about the prophecy, about the mark you carry." Ethan's heart pounded. "The prophecy?" he asked. "I thought it was just a story, an old legend." Liara's eyes met his. "Many humans think of our prophecies as stories, but some stories are based on truth. This one is very real." She paused, letting the words sink in. Centuries ago, a human visited Scythera. No one knew where he came from. He left behind a symbol, the one you carry now. He spoke of unity between humans and Scytherans, and he promised that one day, another human would appear, bearing the same mark, to fulfill what he began. Ethan ran his fingers over his tattoo. He had never felt its importance before, but now it seemed to pulse with meaning. "And you believe I am that human?" he asked cautiously. Liara nodded. "I do. There is a certainty in your presence that cannot be explained by coincidence. The mark is not something that can appear naturally. It is a connection, a bridge between our species, a signal of the path that must be taken." Ethan felt a mixture of awe and fear. The idea that he had been chosen for something so monumental was overwhelming. He had trained for diplomacy, for negotiation, not for destiny. Yet standing before Liara, he sensed that his life had already changed forever. Rilka spoke softly from the side. "Princess, perhaps he should know more gradually. The weight of the prophecy." Liara raised a hand gently. "I understand, Rilka. He must hear this now." Turning back to Ethan, she continued. "The prophecy speaks of unity, yes, but also of trials. The human who bears the mark will face challenges, both from within and from outside. The council may doubt you. Some will question whether a human can truly fulfill this role. But the mark, it is a proof that you can." Ethan swallowed hard. "Challenges. I understand. But why me? I am just one person. I am not extraordinary." Liara smiled faintly. "Extraordinary is not what this requires. Curiosity, courage, and the willingness to act, these are what matter. Humanity has a strength that Zetherans sometimes underestimate. You have something that will guide you through what lies ahead." Ethan looked around the chamber, taking in the details, the intricate carvings on the walls, the glowing plants that floated mid-air, the soft hum of energy that seemed to fill the room. Everything was magnificent. Yet it also felt unfamiliar, almost intimidating. Liara stepped closer. "I want to show you something," she said, motioning for him to follow. She led him through a series of corridors, deeper into the palace. As they walked, Ethan noticed that the walls seemed to shift subtly, displaying images of Zythera's history. Great explorers, traveling through space, the first settlers of Zythera Prime, and moments of triumph and loss. Finally, they arrived at a room filled with shelves that glowed softly, each containing floating data spheres. "This is the Library of Echoes," Liara explained. "It holds the knowledge of Zythera's past, records, histories, and messages from those who came before. And it contains information about the prophecy you are now a part of." Ethan's eyes widened. He had studied alien cultures before, but he had never imagined something like this. A library that held not just books or screens, but glowing spheres of knowledge, each one alive with information. Liara picked up one of the spheres and handed it to him. The moment he touched it, images and words appeared in the air, forming pictures and texts that seemed to flow around him. He saw visions of humans and Zytherans working together, building ships, exchanging ideas, and exploring new worlds. Then the images shifted, showing humans appearing in Zytheran history long before they should have humans bearing the same symbol, guiding events in secret. Ethan stepped back, overwhelmed. This is incredible. How is this possible?" Liara's eyes softened. "The universe has ways of connecting those who are meant to meet. The human who came before you. He left a trace, a pattern that continues through time. You are the continuation of that pattern. The mark is your connection, your guide." Ethan traced the lines of his tattoo again. It no longer felt ordinary. It felt like a key, a map, a signal. He realized that his life on Earth had been leading to this moment, even if he had never understood it before. Rilka watched silently, her expression unreadable. "You must understand," she said carefully, "that the Council may not accept this easily. Humans are outsiders. Even with the mark, some may question whether you can fulfill the prophecy." Ethan nodded. "I expected that. I am willing to try. But I need to understand what I am supposed to do. Where do I begin?" Liara smiled, a mixture of warmth and determination. "For now, we observe, we learn, and we prepare. I will guide you, but you must also learn to trust yourself. The mark may lead the way, but it is your choices that will shape the path. They spent hours in the Library of Echoes, Ethan absorbing knowledge about Scythera, its people, and the history of the prophecy. He learned of the challenges faced by those who had come before him, the doubts and fears they had endured, and the ways in which humans and Scytherans could complement each other. Every fact, every story, seemed to strengthen the sense that he had a role to play, something greater than he had ever imagined. As evening approached, Liara led him back to the balcony that overlooked the city. The twin suns were low, casting long shadows over the towers, turning the crystal structures into rivers of gold and violet. Ethan felt a strange peace, despite the weight of what lay ahead. "Tomorrow," Liara said softly, "we will meet the council. They must see you, understand you, and decide whether the prophecy can begin. It will not be easy, but I believe in you." Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the cool evening air on his face. He looked at the city, alive with motion and light, and then down at his tattoo. It felt alive under his skin, a symbol of something ancient and important. "I'll do my best," he said, quietly but firmly. Liara's eyes met his, and for a moment, the weight of the prophecy was shared between them. "Your best is enough," she said. "Trust yourself, and the mark will guide you." As the night fell over Scythera Prime, Ethan knew that his life had changed forever. He had arrived as a curious human explorer, seeking knowledge and understanding. But now, he was part of something much larger. A prophecy that spanned centuries, a mission that could unite two species, and a journey that would test everything he believed about himself and humanity. He could not see the path ahead clearly, but for the first time, he felt a sense of purpose, and somewhere deep inside, he knew that the mark on his arm was not just a symbol, it was a promise, a connection, and a beginning. The morning on Scythera Prime arrived like a soft glow spreading across the crystalline towers. Ethan Voss woke early, his mind restless. The events of the previous day, the encounter with Princess Liara, the revelation of the prophecy, and the strange energy of the mark on his arm kept replaying in his thoughts. He had spent hours in the Library of Echoes, absorbing centuries of Scytheran history. But now he felt an urgent need to understand more. Rilke appeared at his door just as he was finishing a quick breakfast. "The council will meet you soon," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You must be ready. Today, you will face your first real test." Ethan nodded, a tight knot forming in his stomach. The council had the authority to approve or reject him as the one foretold by prophecy. If they did not believe him, the mission, and perhaps the entire potential alliance between humans and Scytherans, could fail before it began. He followed Rilke through the palace corridors, past the floating gardens and glowing murals that told stories of Scythera's past. Every step made his heartbeat faster. When they reached the council chamber, the massive doors opened automatically, revealing a circular room filled with Scytheran officials. The council members were diverse in appearance, some tall and silver-skinned, others shorter and golden-hued, all adorned in ceremonial attire that gleamed under the soft light. They regarded Ethan with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Whispers passed among them. Though no sound reached his ears, they seemed to communicate subtly through small movements and light shifts in their skin. Princess Liara stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. "Council of Scythera," she began. "This human, Ethan Voss, bears the mark of prophecy. The symbol connects him to events foretold centuries ago. I ask you to consider not just what is seen, but what may be possible." One of the council members, a tall figure with iridescent skin that shifted from blue to green, spoke first. His voice was calm, almost melodic. "Princess, we recognize the symbol, but humans have always been unpredictable. How can we trust that he is capable of fulfilling what our ancestors foresaw?" Ethan swallowed. His training as a diplomat helped him stay composed. I may be human, but I have learned much about your history, your culture, and your technology, he said carefully. I am willing to learn more, and I am willing to prove myself in any way necessary. Another council member, shorter, with golden skin that sparkled faintly, tilted her head. Willingness is not enough. The mark may be prophecy, but prophecy is only meaningful if it is realized. You must demonstrate your understanding, your courage, and your ability to adapt to challenges. Only then will we accept you. Liara turned to Ethan, her eyes calm and steady. You will not face this alone. I will guide you, but the choice to rise to the challenge is yours. Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on him. He had never imagined that the prophecy would demand action, not just presence. But he understood now that the mark on his arm was not a symbol of honor, it was a call to prove himself. Very well, Liara said, addressing the council. Let him begin the trial of convergence. The path will test his intellect, his courage, and his humanity. Observe and judge fairly. A section of the chamber floor shifted, revealing a glowing platform that descended slowly. Ethan stepped onto it, and as it moved downward, he saw that it led into a vast hall filled with holographic projections, strange devices, and corridors that seemed to stretch endlessly. This was the place where his trial would begin. The first challenge appeared immediately. A series of floating panels, each covered in symbols that Ethan had never seen before. They rotated, shifting constantly, making it impossible to memorize them. You must align the panels correctly to open the path forward. Liara's voice came through a soft communicator. Your human mind may perceive patterns differently than ours. Use that difference. Are you our human mind? Are you our human mind? Liara's voice. You are human mind. Use that difference. Liara's voice. Ethan studied the panels carefully. He realized that the panels' movements were not random. They followed a rhythm, a pattern influenced by symmetry and repetition. Slowly, he began to move them, noticing how one panel affected the others. After several minutes, the panels clicked into place, and a door opened. The council murmured among themselves, and Ethan felt a surge of confidence. He had used human ingenuity, not brute strength, to solve the problem. Yet he knew this was only the beginning. The next trial required him to navigate a labyrinth filled with illusions. The walls shimmered, creating images of Scytheran history, past explorers, and even images of Ethan himself in strange scenarios. Some were meant to distract him, others to test his understanding of Scytheran culture. He paused at each junction, observing carefully. Some paths seemed easy, but led to dead ends. Others were complex, requiring him to interpret subtle visual cues. Drawing on his training and his natural curiosity, he advanced carefully, avoiding traps and misdirection. Halfway through, he encountered a holographic guardian, a creature designed to test courage. It was massive, with shifting forms and glowing eyes that seemed to pierce his mind. Ethan's first instinct was fear, but he remembered Liara's words. Curiosity, courage, and willingness to act. He spoke calmly, acknowledging the guardian. I do not wish to fight. I wish to understand. The creature paused, its form flickering. Then it shifted into a smaller, less threatening shape and moved aside, allowing him to pass. Ethan realized that his ability to remain calm and use reasoning rather than violence had succeeded where brute force would have failed. The final part of the trial tested his empathy. He entered a chamber filled with holographic projections of Scytherans, in distress, trapped in danger, facing crises, or struggling with moral dilemmas. Ethan had to make choices quickly, deciding who to help first, how to use limited resources, and how to negotiate with the projections. Each decision affected the holographic world, Some choices had immediate consequences. Others had delayed effects, creating cascading challenges. Ethan's human perspective, valuing cooperation, fairness, and creativity, allowed him to navigate the scenarios successfully. He began to notice patterns in Scytheran thinking, differences that allowed him to approach problems in ways the aliens themselves might not expect. When the trial concluded, a soft light filled the hall. Ethan stepped forward, exhausted but triumphant. The council members regarded him with a mixture of surprise and respect. The murmurs were now filled with approval rather than doubt. Liara stepped beside him, her eyes bright. "You have completed the trial, Ethan. Not by luck, but by using the qualities humans possess: creativity, empathy, adaptability. These are what the prophecy recognized in your species. Not strength alone, not knowledge alone, but the way you think, the way you act." One of the council members, the tall figure with shifting blue and green skin, approached. "You have passed the test," he said slowly, his voice solemn. "Perhaps the prophecy is true. Perhaps humanity and Scythera can walk together." Ethan felt a swell of relief. For centuries, humans had been seen as minor players in interstellar affairs. Now, he was a symbol of a new possibility, one where his species could contribute, not just observe. Liara placed a hand gently on his arm, near the mark. "The prophecy is only beginning. There will be greater challenges, more complex decisions, and times when you will doubt yourself. But you are not alone. I will guide you, and your choices will guide us all." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of the responsibility. He knew that the council's approval was not the end, it was a beginning. He had proven his potential, but the real work lay ahead. As they left the hall, Liara guided him to a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The twin suns were high now, reflecting off the crystal towers in dazzling patterns. Ethan felt a sense of calm. He had faced the first trial and succeeded, but he knew the journey was far from over. "Do you understand now why the mark matters?" Liara asked softly. "I think so," Ethan replied. "It's not just a symbol. It's a guide, a reminder of what I am capable of, and what I have to do." Liara nodded. "Yes, and it is also a signal to your people humans that they are not alone in the galaxy. Your presence here, your actions, will show them what is possible." Ethan looked at his tattoo again. The spiral of lines and shapes seemed to glow faintly in the sunlight, as if alive. He realized that he had never truly understood its meaning until now. It was not just a mark of destiny, it was a connection, a bridge, and a test, all in one. For the first time, he felt the full weight of what lay ahead. The prophecy was real. The challenges would be many. But he also felt a sense of purpose he had never known. He had come to Scythera Prime seeking knowledge and friendship, but now he was part of something larger, a mission that could unite two species and perhaps change the future of the galaxy. Liara's voice brought him back from his thoughts. "Rest now, Ethan. Tomorrow, you will meet with the scholars and strategists. You will begin to learn how your choices can influence not just Scythera, but the stars beyond. And remember," she looked at him with intensity, "the mark is not a guarantee. It is a challenge, and you have the ability to rise to it." Ethan felt a mixture of excitement and determination. He had passed the trial, but he knew that each step forward would demand more courage, more insight, and more trust in himself. The prophecy was no longer a distant legend, it was a living path, one that he was now walking. As the suns dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the towers of Scythera, Ethan allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The journey ahead would be difficult, but for the first time, he truly felt that he was capable of fulfilling what destiny had chosen for him. And somewhere deep inside, He knew that humanity, curious, resourceful, and resilient, was about to take its first true steps among the stars, guided by a mark, a prophecy, and a human who dared to believe in himself. The next morning, on Sci-Fi Prime, Ethan Voss woke with a mix of anticipation and nervousness. Yesterday's trial had been grueling but rewarding. He had proven himself to the council, demonstrating human ingenuity, empathy, and courage. Yet he knew that passing a single test was only the beginning. The real challenges, the ones that would determine if the prophecy could truly unfold, lay ahead. Rilka appeared at his door promptly, her expression calm but alert. "The council has arranged for today's trials," she said. "You will face more complex challenges, ones that test your understanding of both human and Sci-Fi abilities. Are you ready?" Ethan nodded, adjusting the sleeve of his jacket to reveal the mark on his arm. The tattoo pulsed faintly in the morning light, as if sensing the coming trials. "I'm ready," he said, though a flutter of nerves lingered. Liara met him in the central hall, her long hair flowing around her shoulders as she moved with her usual grace. "Ethan," she said softly, "today you will not only prove yourself to the council, but also to yourself. Remember, human ingenuity and courage are as important as Scytheran skill and knowledge. Use both. 5. Problem 16. Sign." He followed her through the palace corridors to a vast chamber at the edge of the city. The walls shimmered with energy, and a soft hum filled the air. In the center, a platform descended slowly, revealing a series of interconnected test zones. Each area glowed with holographic energy, containing challenges designed to push his mind, body, and spirit. "This is the Hall of Convergence," Liara explained. "Each trial will test a different quality: observation, strategy, adaptability, and moral judgment. You must navigate all 4 to succeed. Failure will not end your life, but it may prevent the prophecy from progressing." Ethan took a deep breath and stepped onto the first platform. The floor shifted beneath him, projecting a maze of floating panels and shifting walls. The first test was one of observation. He quickly realized that the panels contained subtle patterns. Unlike the previous trial, these patterns were less obvious, constantly changing, with holographic projections designed to distract him. Many panels seemed identical, but careful examination revealed differences in angle, reflection, and color. Ethan crouched, moved slowly, and studied each carefully. His human attention to detail allowed him to spot the subtle variations. Step by step, he aligned the panels, opening the path forward. A soft chime signaled success, and the next trial appeared. This one tested strategy. A complex set of Scytheran devices rose from the floor, each requiring coordination, timing, and logical thinking. The challenge was clear: manipulate the devices in the correct sequence to reach the next chamber. Ethan studied them carefully. He noticed patterns in the energy flows, the way one device influenced the others. He experimented cautiously, making adjustments based on observation and intuition. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours, but finally, a correct sequence clicked into place. The devices stabilized, and a doorway opened, revealing the next test. The third trial tested adaptability. Ethan entered a chamber filled with holographic projections that shifted constantly. One moment, the room appeared empty. The next, walls and floors shifted unpredictably, creating new obstacles. He had to navigate quickly, changing his path as the environment evolved. For the first time, he felt a surge of exhilaration. Humans were not naturally as precise as Scytherans in terms of physical movement, but Ethan realized he could use creativity and flexibility to compensate. He leaped, rolled, and adjusted his movements with quick thinking, finding paths that the holograms themselves seemed not to anticipate. Finally, he reached the fourth chamber, the test of moral judgment. Here, holographic projections showed Zytherans in crisis, trapped, injured, or in moral dilemmas requiring immediate decisions. Ethan was confronted with impossible choices, save one at the risk of another, or find a solution that required compromise and ingenuity. He thought carefully, weighing consequences, balancing empathy with practicality. Where some humans might panic, he used calm reasoning. Where some Zytherans might act with strict logic, he found creative compromises. Step by step, he guided the projections to safety, showing a blend of human compassion and quick thinking. When the final holographic figure reached safety, the chamber lit up with a soft, golden glow. Ethan felt a surge of relief and accomplishment. He had passed every test, not by luck, but by using the very qualities that Liara had said defined humans: curiosity, empathy, adaptability, and courage. Liara appeared beside him, her eyes shining with pride. "You have done well, Ethan. You have demonstrated that human qualities complement Zythran's skill. This is exactly what the prophecy foresaw. Not a perfect being, but a human capable of bridging our worlds." The council members, observing from above, murmured approval. One stepped forward, a tall Zythran with silver skin and piercing eyes. "Your success is undeniable," he said. "You have proven that humans are capable of more than we expected. Perhaps the prophecy is true." Ethan allowed himself a small smile. He felt a sense of pride, but also a deeper understanding. This was only the beginning. The trials had tested his abilities, but the challenges of real diplomacy, real leadership, and real unity between two species would be far more complex. Liara guided him to a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The twin suns were high, reflecting off the towers and casting shifting patterns of light. Ethan could see citizens moving below, unaware of the prophecy unfolding in the palace. "Do you understand now why humans are essential?" Liara asked softly. "We value intelligence and skill, yes. But your species brings something different. Something that complements our strengths: courage, creativity, and empathy." The prophecy recognized this long ago. Ethan looked at his tattoo again. The spiral of lines felt alive beneath his skin, as if resonating with the energy of Zythera itself. "I understand," he said. "But I also understand that this is just the beginning. There will be more challenges, more decisions, and more responsibility." Liara nodded. "Yes. And you are ready. Your success today is proof. But remember, the mark is not just a guide, it is a test. Your choices will shape the path forward. Every decision, every action, will matter." As the day passed, Ethan continued to explore the palace with Liara. She showed him parts of the city he had never seen before. Floating gardens with plants that glowed softly in shifting colors. Towers filled with archives of Zytheran knowledge, and observation platforms that revealed the breathtaking landscape of mountains, oceans, and crystal spires. They spoke quietly about the future, about the possibilities of human-Zytheran collaboration. Ethan realized that his role was not just to prove himself in trials, but to inspire trust, cooperation, and understanding between two very different species. It was a weighty responsibility. But he felt a sense of purpose he had never known on Earth. As evening fell, Liara and Ethan returned to the palace balcony. The twin suns cast a golden-pink light across the city, and Ethan felt a deep sense of awe. He had faced trials, learned new truths, and proven himself to a species older and wiser than his own. Yet he knew that the true challenge lay ahead, earning the trust of the council fully, guiding his own people, and preparing for the mission the prophecy demanded. Liara looked at him thoughtfully. "Tomorrow, we will begin preparations for the next phase. You will meet scholars, strategists, and leaders who will help guide the path of human Zytheran collaboration. and you will begin to understand the full significance of the prophecy." Ethan nodded, feeling a mix of anticipation and resolve. The prophecy was no longer a distant story, it was his reality. His actions, his choices, and his courage would determine not only his fate but the fate of two species. As night fell over Sci-Fi Prime, Ethan gazed at his tattoo one last time for the day. The mark was no longer a simple design. It was a symbol of possibility, responsibility, and hope. For the first time, he truly felt that he was ready to rise to the challenge, to embrace the prophecy, and to take humanity's first steps into a larger future among the stars. He did not know what lay ahead, but for the first time, he felt certain that he was not alone. With Liara's guidance, the wisdom of the Council, and the strength of his own species behind him, he was ready to face whatever trials the universe would set before him. And somewhere deep within, he knew that the mark on his arm was not just a symbol of destiny. It was a promise, a bridge, and a beginning. The morning sun rose over Sci-Fi Prime, casting soft rays across the crystalline towers. Ethan Voss awoke with a quiet determination. The trials had tested him, revealing the unique strengths humans brought to the stars. Now, the final challenge awaited one that would determine whether the prophecy could truly be fulfilled. Princess Liara met him in the central hall, her presence calm but filled with intensity. "Today, Ethan, we bring your efforts to their conclusion," she said. "The council will convene for the final judgment. This is your opportunity to show not only your skill, but your vision for unity between humans and Scytherans." Ethan nodded. He felt ready. He had faced challenges, made decisions that tested his courage and empathy, and proven the value of his species. The prophecy had brought him to this moment, but it was his choices that would shape the future. The council chamber was filled with anticipation. The Scytheran officials sat in their seats, their skin shimmering softly as they communicated in subtle gestures and light patterns. The atmosphere was tense, yet respectful. Every eye was on Ethan as he entered. Liara stepped forward. "Council of Sci-Fi," she began. "You have witnessed the trials, the courage, and the ingenuity of this human. He carries the mark of prophecy, yes. But more importantly, he carries the potential to unite our worlds. I ask you to consider not only the symbol but the actions that prove it true." Trimes. 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 The council remained silent for a moment. Then the tall, silver-skinned member spoke. "Ethan Voss has faced our trials with intelligence, courage, and compassion. These qualities are not bound by species. They are the qualities that the prophecy sought to highlight." Another member, golden-skinned and smaller, added, "We observed his moral judgment, his creativity, and his ability to adapt. It is clear that humans bring something unique, something that complements our own strengths. Perhaps this is the unity our ancestors foresaw." Ethan stood calmly, feeling a mixture of pride and responsibility. He knew the council's approval was only the beginning. Their acceptance would allow him to begin building trust, cooperation, and understanding between humanity and Sci-Fi. Liara stepped beside him, her hand lightly brushing his arm. "This is not the end," she said softly. "It is the beginning. The choices you make now will shape the future of our worlds." The council members nodded in unison, their decision clear. "Ethan Voss," the silver-skinned member, said solemnly, "you are recognized as the human of prophecy. You have proven your worth and your potential. We welcome your guidance and partnership in shaping a new era." A quiet cheer rippled through the chamber. Though subtle by Scytheran standards, Ethan felt a swell of emotion. Humanity had long been underestimated in the galaxy, seen as fragile and unpredictable. Now, standing before the council, he represented not only himself but the promise of his species. Liara smiled at him, her eyes bright. "The first step is done," she said, "but the real work begins." Together, we will build a coalition, combining human ingenuity and Scytheran knowledge. Together, we will explore, learn, and grow. Ethan felt a surge of determination. He had come to Scythera Prime seeking understanding and diplomacy, but he had found a purpose far greater. Humanity's place among the stars was no longer a dream, it was becoming reality. Over the following days, Ethan worked closely with Liara, the Council, and other Scytheran leaders. He learned the intricacies of their technology, studied their history, and shared knowledge of human innovation. Slowly, the alliance between humans and Scytherans began to take shape. Ships were designed to carry crews from both species. Research projects were planned to explore distant systems, and cultural exchanges were organized to foster mutual understanding. Ethan's human perspective brought new ideas to Scytheran strategy. Where they relied on careful calculation and tradition, he introduced flexibility, creativity, and the willingness to take calculated risks. His presence inspired the younger Scytherans to see humans not as outsiders, but as partners. Liara remained by his side, guiding him through diplomatic and logistical challenges. Their bond grew stronger, built on mutual respect and shared purpose. Ethan realized that the prophecy was not only about the mark or the trials, it was also about partnership, trust, and vision. One evening, after a long day of planning, Liara led Ethan to the palace balcony. The city stretched below them, glowing softly as the twin suns set. The light reflected off the crystalline towers, painting the world in shades of violet and gold. "You have come far," Liara said, her voice gentle. "Not just in trials, but in understanding and leadership. The council respects you. The people are beginning to trust you. And more importantly, you have begun to see the potential of our partnership." Ethan looked at the city below, then at his tattoo. The spiral of lines pulsed faintly, almost as if it acknowledged his achievements. "It's more than I ever imagined," he admitted. "I thought the prophecy was just a story, but now I see it's about action, choices, and working together." Liara nodded. "Exactly. The mark is only a guide. The true test is what you do with the opportunity it gives you." In the following weeks, the first joint human-Scytheran mission was launched. Ships crewed by humans and Scytherans traveled together to neighboring systems, mapping uncharted planets and studying alien phenomena. Ethan watched as his species collaborated with theirs, combining strengths and learning from each other. He saw humans adapt to Scytheran technology, using creativity to solve problems that machines alone could not handle. He saw Scytherans learn from human intuition and empathy, making decisions that balanced logic with understanding. It was the fulfillment of the prophecy in motion, a partnership that transcended species. During one mission, Ethan and Liara stood together on the observation deck of a research ship, gazing at a distant nebula. "This is only the beginning," Liara said. "There are countless worlds to explore, challenges to face, and discoveries to make. Humanity and Scythera together can achieve what neither could alone." Ethan nodded, feeling the truth of her words. "We have a lot to learn from each other," he said. "But if we continue like this, there's no limit to what we can accomplish." Liara smiled, her gaze softening. "And it is your human qualities that make this possible. Courage, creativity, empathy, they are the key to uniting our species." The nebula before them glowed with brilliant colors, a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the endless possibilities ahead. Ethan felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had arrived on Scythera Prime as an explorer, unsure of his place. Now, he was a symbol of unity, a bridge between humans and Scytherans, and a participant in a story that would shape the future of the stars. As the days turned into weeks, the alliance grew stronger. Humans began to settle on Scythera Prime, working alongside Scytherans in research, education, and exploration. Joint missions mapped new systems, discovered resources, and even made contact with other intelligent species. Ethan saw firsthand how collaboration and mutual respect could achieve what isolation and fear never could. One evening, as the twin suns set behind the crystalline mountains, Liara and Ethan returned to the balcony where it had all begun. The city below shimmered like a field of jewels, alive with activity and light. Liara studied Ethan's tattoo, her voice soft. "I knew it. Humanity was always meant to shine among the stars. And now, you have proven it." Ethan touched the mark on his arm, feeling its faint pulse. "It's not just the mark," he said. "It's what we do with it. What we choose to make of it. That's what matters." Liara nodded. "Yes, and together, humans and Scytherans will write a new chapter for the galaxy. One of understanding, exploration, and partnership." The prophecy was never about one human alone. It was about the connection between worlds. Ethan smiled, looking out at the horizon. The twin suns dipped lower, casting long shadows across the towers. The air shimmered with the energy of possibility. He felt a sense of peace, knowing that the future was not predetermined, it was something they would create together. For the first time, he understood the true meaning of the prophecy. It was not just a symbol or a mark. It was a promise of what could be achieved when courage, empathy, and collaboration guided action. And as he stood beside Liara, watching the city glow beneath the setting suns, he felt a deep certainty. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as outsiders, but as partners, explorers, and allies. The mark on his arm pulsed faintly, a reminder of the journey that had begun and the future that lay ahead. Ethan knew that the path would not always be easy. But it was a path worth taking. A path of unity, discovery, and hope. And in that moment, under the twin suns of Scythera Prime, Ethan Voss realized that the prophecy had been fulfilled not by destiny alone, but by human courage, creativity, and the willingness to rise to the challenge. Together, humans and Scytherans would step forward into the galaxy, forging a future that neither could achieve alone. And the stars themselves seemed to shine brighter in recognition of this new alliance, a testament to the power of hope, determination, and the unbreakable bond between worlds.